Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky, and we are in an episode of Worlds to Conquer where we are going to talk about one of my hands down all-time favorite subjects, and that is how to prospect for your RIA. I have no joke been involved in prospecting since I was 10 years old. And that is because my mother and father, Floyd and Rosa Shalansky, started our registered investment advisory firm back in the 1980s. My parents did not come from a background of affluence. They didn't understand the dynamics of money and how that works from generation to generation. What they understood about money was that having it was a lot better than not having it. And so they were going to commit a lifetime to learning everything that they possibly could about money and then turning around and sharing those values and those lessons with like-minded people. My parents did everything under the moon since they've started the company to prospect and advertise our little RIA up here in Anchorage, Alaska. And they've grown it to one of the largest firms in this particular territory. And the way that they did that was trying things. Let's see what works. And making sure that they challenge themselves to always be thinking about, if everyone is doing this, what is somebody else not doing? How do we stay one step ahead? In fact, if you ever have an opportunity to talk to Floyd Shalansky at a conference, he is a powerhouse. He is so knowledgeable, full of information. Make sure that you reach out and talk to him. Discuss with him what you're doing, what your strategy is, what your plan is. And then he's going to ask you a two-worded question that is going to challenge you to your core. And he is going to ask you, what's next? What's next? He is always thinking about what is coming down that pipeline, and he is challenging every financial advisor in the country to be thinking about that question as well. So if you've got a really great prospecting strategy in place, you feel really humming along, you need to be thinking about what's next for you. What is the next evolution of your prospecting? What's the next evolution of your client experience? How are you going to continue to grow and not stay stagnant where you are? He often talks about a vacuum sucker. That means that once you enter an industry and you start really saturating it with your market content, it doesn't take too long before one or two other people see what you're doing and jump right along. We experienced this significantly with our company called Plan Your Federal Retirement. My brother Micah and I were not the first people in the federal employee space, but we were the ones to bring effective marketing and an evolution of how federal employees received information to the industry. And it did not take long for other people to see what we were doing and jump on the bandwagon and begin to say, hey, I could do that better. And that's what entrepreneurship is, right? Looking at somebody else's and saying, hey, I could probably do that better. But if they don't have a Floyd Shalansky in their life, then they probably don't have a lot of people challenging them saying, what is next? What is your next evolution? What are you going to do when this is played out and completely inundated? What is the next evolution of where you are going? And that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about prospecting, how to get prospects, and where you're at in your financial advisory business. So one of the things at conferences, generally financial advisors are pointed in my direction. They come up and say, hey, listen, I don't know who you are, but so-and-so told me I have to talk to you about marketing. So I love to have that conversation. I said, great, well, tell me a little bit about who you work with. And they say, oh, we have, clients. And I normally get very repetitive answers. I deal with people within 5 years away from retirement. They have X amount of dollars under AUM, and that's really who I work best with. Great, tell me about how you get new clients. Oh, basically, I'm a word of mouth firm. I get a lot of referrals. Fantastic. How are you getting those referrals? What are you doing for them? Oh, well, and then it just kind of gets awkward. They cross their arms, they shuffle their feet because they're not really working a referral system. They don't really have a drip campaign in place. They're not really actively marketing. They're just really hoping that their existing clients are going to refer more people just like them to their practice, which means they also don't really have any qualifications for who they best serve. And so really what you want to think about is if you serve everyone, you serve no one. If everyone is your client, nobody is your client. Who do you work best with? And the answer is not anyone that can fog a mirror. And a lot of financial advisors have been operating their practice thinking that anyone willing to hire them is exactly who they should work with. But never in my life have I fired a client and looked back and regretted the decision. Never once. Now, I've looked back on situations and said, my God, I should have ended that relationship sooner. Or I saw all those red flags. I didn't listen to my instincts. I took them on anyway because they wanted help. And there's something out there in financial advisors. There's something ingrained. We all have different practices. We all have different approaches. We all work with different people. But there is something intuitive about the person that is called to be a financial advisor. And that is because we are problem solvers. We are fixers. We are the people turn to in order to discover some type of answer to their most complex, emotional, draining questions. And so when a prospect sits across from us and they want help and they want us to problem solve for them and with them, we are so eager to do that. We want to do that so bad because for us, whatever that intuitive instinct is to problem solve kicks in and we disregard our gut and we say, you know what, I can fix these problems. It'll be okay. Maybe it'll work if. So number one rule with prospecting, if you serve everyone, you serve no one. You need to know who you work best with. And you need to know how to respectfully, politely turn down people who want to work with you, but you know are not a good fit for what you do. We turn down a lot of prospects that want to work with our firm, want to work with a particular financial advisor, but we know just are not a good fit. Now, we are blessed that we believe in a life, in a world that is full of abundance. And our parents worked so hard and scraped by so often in order to build this firm where we now have the ability to turn people away. But don't think for 1 second that we've made it to some pinnacle or top of the pyramid that we think that, oh, we just don't have to work with all of these people. That's not why we turn people away. We know we have to continue to work with clients. We know we have to continue to grow our firm. And we understand it is our responsibility because it is our livelihood and the livelihood of the team that we employ and we trust so much. So the reason that we turn prospects away isn't because we're sitting in some sort of lap of luxury and no longer need the income that that prospect would bring. Instead, we turn them away because we have a lifetime of seeing what happens with client relationships that deteriorate when you don't trust your gut and bring on the wrong person. So when a prospect is meeting with you and you hear those red flags, you feel that little spidey sensation in your gut saying, gosh, this is not somebody that I really want to work with. When you look at your calendar during Surge and you dread a client's name being on your appointment schedule, then that is a person that you know better. You know you should not be working with them because remember, guys, we're still financial advisors, which means we operate in a highly regulated industry and it does not take a significant grievance on the behalf of a client to become a major complaint that stays with us on our license for a longer period of time than any of us want it to be. If a client sends a late night email because they're concerned about the markets and they have all of this other emotional stress, maybe their son has OD'd again and their wife is threatening divorce because she thinks you don't care enough about the child, and they log on, they look at their accounts because everything is instant access to us right now. Now they have these financial concerns and they send out a hot email and say, hey, my friend has a 12% performance and you're only doing 7%, and now I'm upset. How have you mismanaged my funds? And my favorite word, right? What is your fiduciary responsibility here? So they send in a late night meandering email to you that to your compliance department is 100% a complaint. You call the client and the client says, hey, thank you so much. I'm just really stressed right now. I've got all this going on. You talk to them about the markets. It's a 2-minute conversation and they're really not as concerned as what the other problems in their lives are. But guess what? You still have a complaint you have to deal with. You still have to report that to your compliance officer and you still have to come up with a response. Now, can you always prevent this problem? Can that happen with a client that you even really like to work with? Of course it can, right? It's not always 100% preventable. However, I have found in my experience of working with hundreds of households, it is only the complaints from the people that we knew better. We knew we shouldn't have been working with them in the first place. So if you want to mitigate a lot of complaints or compliance concerns, only work with people that you enjoy working with. And just because somebody is willing to hire you does not mean that they are a good fit for your financial advisory practice. I am preaching this one from the mountaintop because we too quickly, too often want to help all the people that we possibly can. And the second somebody wants to hire us, we want to jump in and be that hero for them. So who do you work best with? For me, particularly, I like salt of the earth people. I work with a lot of small business people, and I like ones that don't come from multi-generational wealth. They're not trust fund babies. They're people that just knew that they could do something better and that they wanted to be the one to change everything. I love those kind of people. I relate to those people. I firmly believe that if you work with people who share your values, you can change the entire world and make meaningful differences. And you need to embrace who you work with and how you phrase that to people. When people ask me what I do and I'm just meeting them, I say I bully small business owners into listening to my financial advice so that they save money on taxes and don't die broke in a company that they no longer love running. Now, if you are not my ideal client, you will not identify with any of the words that I just said. Instead, you're going to wonder if I'm an accountant or a CPA. If you are my ideal client, those words are really going to resonate with you. Because small business owners normally get murdered on two expenses. One, employees, payroll is so much more than they ever dreamed it would be necessary for the work that they're paying to get done. And two, they get hammered on taxes because taxes are complex and hard to understand. And there's a lot of different advice out there. YouTube University is guilty of giving the most inaccurate information to prospects and clients about how that they can save money on their taxes as small business write-offs. One of my favorite scenes from Schitt's Creek, if you like that show, is David talking to his dad, ordering all this inventory and supplies, and then the dad, questioning him about, if he could afford it, if he had the capital for all of it. And David says, it's a write-off. And he says, okay, son, but what's a write-off? And he's like, it's a write-off. And they banter back and forth about what's a write-off and what isn't a write-off and what it means for taxes. And it's hilarious because it is true, right? It's like those comedians that don't tell jokes about your wife. They talk about wives in general. And it's hilarious because it is true. And most small business owners, when they start operating, they start talking to CPAs looking for advice. And the CPA will, normally point them towards an S corporation election, which may or may not be appropriate for the firm that they're trying to build. And then after they establish some type of relationship with a CPA, then they may consider bringing in an attorney for all the legal documents who has their own set of advice on what tax selection that they should have. And then the third person is normally me when I'm trying to come in and turn the ship around, save a situation, maybe get somebody out of bankruptcy, maybe restructure things so that we can create an enterprise model. We do startups, whatever it is. But now you have three people on your financial team that could be giving conflicting advice. And so if you're a financial advisor that works with small businesses, and here's a secret, we almost all are because somebody has a side hustle nowadays, right? If it's Etsy, if it's Airbnb, if it's real estate, whatever it is, we're all doing something in addition to our normal jobs. Then you want to make sure that you harness those relationships and you bring everyone working together on the same page. And you talk about having a financial team and you're the one doing the heavy lifting with all those other financial professionals in their life so that the client is getting one clear and direct message about how to move forward. Now, if you are a W-2 employee and you don't relate to anything I just told you in my little elevator pitch, then you're going to instantaneously weed yourself out of my filter. Now, the second thing that you might have picked up on is, yes, I do use the word bully because guess what? I will bully people into making smarter financial decisions and I will do it loudly and proudly because I really want the absolute best for them financially. This strategy, this approach, this demeanor, this character, whatever you want to call it, does not jive with everyone. Not everyone likes what I have to say, and that is 100% okay. I'm just not going to change who I am, because then I'm going to be trying to fit into some filtered, watered down version of me that isn't in your best interest. And when I first got my license and started meeting with clients, I really grappled with this for several years about being the mirror image of who they thought I should be instead of who I am. And finally, we had a business consultant coach come in and say, hey, you're holding yourself back. Don't conform to anything else. Be who you are. And if that doesn't work for someone, then they're not the someones you should be working with. And I love that, because I am aggressive. And if I try to bridle that back, you're not going to get the absolute best of me. And that's what I want for you, is to get my best so we can achieve your best. It is your responsibility to identify who you work best with, right? One of the things I love about boundaries is boundaries don't keep people out, they keep you in. So you're in your absolute best space, best state of mind, and best attitude to get things done. If you have an existing book of business and you're planning your fall surge or your spring surge and you've got all your clients listed down, look at the names and you will know instinctively which ones you dread. Highlight those, evaluate the relationship. And if you want that really reinforced, go to your team and say, hey team, I'm thinking about graduating these particular sets of clients because I no longer feel our values aligned and I just don't think I'm giving them my absolute best. And I guarantee if you give your team that list, they will almost 80 to 90% agree with your choices because they don't like working with them either. The first time we did this in our office, we were astounded to find the feedback from our team members who said, you know what, I find them really rude, they're abrasive, they're not friendly, they always have problems, they always call and complain over the smallest little detail. And this is true because the people that you're employing probably share your values. You will be astounded in the most grateful way to find that you and your employees probably agree on the same clients no longer being suited to the direction that you're headed. And keep in mind that happiness does not mean a stressful life, right? When given the choice, do you want a life that is peaceful or a life with conflict? I will choose the life with conflict all the time because I like stress that is healthy and discipline, because the right kind of stress, right? The right kind of making sure that you need to be disciplined can really focus my mental abilities and can really give me a burst of energy when I absolutely need it the most. And it pushes me to achieve goals and deadlines under pressure, which is the best motivator known to man. This is one of the reasons in my client meetings, I always set deadlines when I have a client that needs to do homework for us, right? Is that I want that deadline to be driven because I truly believe in Parkinson's law, which states that the work will take up the amount of time that you allow for it to take up. So if I tell the client, hey, I'd like to get your estate planning done this year, guess when we'll get it done? December 25th. If I say, hey, I want to get your estate planning done in the next 45 days, is that achievable? Guess when we'll get it done? You're right, in 45 days. Now, I'm not talking about the bad kind of stress, right? The incredible, harmful to your well-being, the one that makes you super anxious, it fatigues your body, you put on weight, you have blood pressure problems, you're mentally, spiritually, physically run down, you're no longer your best for your family at home. That is the wrong kind of stress. And if you have clients that are causing those kind of stress, if you're meeting with prospects that bring on that level of anxiety because you're worried about those situations, then you need to extract them from your life. You have a choice. You have a choice who you work with and who you work best with, who gets your best. And whoever's getting your best, it needs to be heck yeah kind of energy. I am fired up. I am willing to meet with this person and I cannot wait to conquer the world with them. Once you know who you work best with and you've really defined that, if you think you need to define who you work best with for an elevator pitch, then go ahead, write down the sequence. Take a sheet of paper. On the left side, write one of many, and on the right side, write one of a kind. What makes you one of many? And if you're using the words fiduciary, fee only, and I would be even hesitant to use the word financial advisor because I think it's too ambiguous. We've done a terrible job of quantifying who gets to be called a financial advisor in the financial services space. But start writing down what makes you unique, what makes you different than everyone else. And don't use words that you see in common language. Don't use words that you see in marketing all over, from the Fidelities, the Schwab, the Vanguard, these marketing giants that will always have deeper pockets than you do. What is unique to you. I use the word bully because it came out of a joke. I was sitting around a cocktail party one time and I had some good friends with me and talking to some people. And I'm the type of person that as soon as I meet you, I hate chit chat. Let's not do it. Let's not talk about the weather. Let's not talk about the food, anything like that. You want to skip all of that and not even introduce ourselves to one another and dive into like real big life-changing topics. I'm your gal. I'm totally down for that. And so we had been sitting at this table, this pub table together, and somebody was sharing information. Of course, I jump in unsolicited and start, asking them questions and thinking, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And then them asking me questions in return. Totally tantalizing conversation. And so they come back and say, hey, what do you do? And all of a sudden my friend pipes in and says, oh, she bullies people into taking her financial advice. And we all laughed, right? Because I'm aggressive and I can be a bit of a bully. And that was totally okay with me. Because if you don't respond to that, if you don't like that, if my personality doesn't match yours, that is okay. You don't have to always like me. And guess what? I don't have to like you in return. But for the people that I work best with, that will resonate with them. They will like the tenacity of my spirit because they want somebody on their team advocating for them. So what is unique about you? What is really exceptional? Even if the words kind of seem ugly or you don't like them or you don't feel that they'll market well, what is unique about you? What makes you one of a kind instead of one of many? So now that I know exactly who I work with and who I want to work with, does that mean I will turn everyone down just because they don't fit that mold? No, I work with people all of the time that maybe aren't small business owners, that have different careers or maybe work for a small business owner. And we develop financial plans. We have beautiful relationships. That doesn't mean I won't work with you. That just means here's my focus. And that's acceptable. People totally understand that 100%, and they're on board with that. But I also know my limitations. I also know when to say, hey, this isn't what I do. Particularly when I have to go to a lot of charity events, business events, dinners, fundraisers, etc., that are a byproduct of working with small businesses. I'll get approached by somebody that's got a 401k that needs to be managed. And they'll say, hey, we're looking for a new financial advisor. Looks like everyone charges 1%. Can you do it for 1%? And can I bring this business over to you? No, absolutely not. I don't do that. There's a whole market of financial advisors that deal with very large 401k plans, and that is all they do. Please go talk to them. That is not who I am. And the number one reason I don't work with people that only want 401k management is that my operations supervisor would probably murder me in my sleep if I did, because they are logistical nightmares for your operations team. Because normally the rank and file, the 80-20 rule, right, take up 80% of the time. And there's just not enough money in it for me to feel good about asking her to do that, or to compensate her what I know is going to be a very laborious task. I also don't work with a lot of college professors. Generally, it's a value alignment thing. Sometimes I'll meet someone that's an occasional college professor and we'll have a better understanding. We can have collective dialogue, right? Especially politically in this environment. What appointment has not brought up politics in the last 4 years? It has been insane how many clients are talking to you about their political feelings nowadays. And so I'm open to debate and feedback and to be able to respectfully push back on you. I don't care if you have my same political values, but you have to have my same core values. And for me, those core values are being honest, hardworking, kind, and optimistic. Those are things that I really appreciate in my own self and I look for in other people. So when I meet with somebody that I don't share those values with, or if they need a level of expertise, I don't specialize in. Like I had a college professor that had worked at multiple different universities, had a combination of different benefit plans, a lifetime career being a professor at very accredited and prestigious schools, come to me looking for advice with all these different plans. I said, I'm not going to do you justice. This is not something that I'm beehived in, right? I don't live, eat, and breathe this. Instead, I think you're going to be better suited talking to somebody else, and let me help you, point you in the right direction. I got a little pushback because they really wanted to work with me since their friend did. And I said, here's the deal. And I just told them, I said, hey, listen, you're coming to me, but I'm a heart surgeon and you need a knee surgeon. I can't fix a knee problem. And I respect you enough to know that I've isolated the problem down to your knee and put you in line with a specialist that can help you with your your permission, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'd love to make an introduction to so-and-so. They specialize in this field, and I think that you're really going to get valuable insight from them, something that I can't offer you because this isn't where I specialize. I do not pretend to know what I do not know. It is okay to say, I don't know. I've never once sat with a client that asked me an obscure question that I was not 100% confident in my answer and looked at them and said, I'm not 100% sure on that. Let me do a little bit more research and I'd love to get back to you. Not once has somebody stood up, threw their coffee cup against the wall and said, I cannot believe you're not omnipotent. I am out of here. That just doesn't happen. People expect you to be honest enough in your specialty, in your practice, in your expertise to admit when you do not know something by saying, let me get back to you. So now that you know who you work with and how to phrase who you work with, then you also need to reassure that your team knows who you work best with so that when they are filtering the prospects that are going to call your office, they are making that sure that they are really qualified. And we spent a lot of years talking to relationship managers, and those are the people, and they handle 100% of the prospects in our office, about qualifying prospects. And in the 1990s, qualification of a prospect meant their age, their income, and the value of their accounts. That is an incredibly uncomfortable conversation for somebody that just elevated themselves out of prior work where they worked as a receptionist to ask a prospect, tell me how old you are, tell me how much money you make, and tell me how much money you have to see if you're worth the time of coming in and meeting with our financial advisors. It's a terrible strategy, in my opinion. If you are doing this successfully and it ends up not being something that makes you sound like a used car salesman, I got to know about it. Tell me, hit me up at lifestyle@theperfectra.com. I want to know what you're saying and how you're saying it. But for most of us, that's not going to work. Our employees are not going to ask those qualifying questions. Instead, we need to proposition them for success. One of the things that Matthew Jarvis does is he directs everyone to his website. And so Colleen in his office, when she has a prospect call in, instead of her qualifying that person, she says, instead, Matthew works with a unique set of people, and I want to make sure that he's best suited for your needs. Could you jump online and review who we work with best with and make sure that that suits you? Now at RRIA, Shalansky & Associates, we do not have that written online or redirect. Instead, we have a team of relationship managers that help foster that conversation. They are ingrained with scripts and dialogues. We put them through the Ritz-Carlton training before they're allowed to graduate to dealing with prospects and helping prospects and coaching them, because they need to know what advice that they can give a prospect, what they can't give a prospect, which is pretty much no financial advice. But they can help them facilitate finding information, getting documents together. After a year of working with our practice, everyone becomes a paraplanner. So they take the course and they have to pass the test. And so they're very comfortable with what financial information looks like, but they know the boundary of not being able to provide financial advice to prospects. And they have a coaching conversation. And the reason that the coaching conversation works so well for our relationship managers is in part of our employee benefit package, we make sure that employees know that they too can participate in financial planning with any one of our financial advisors of their choice. And we put our employees through the exact same experience that our prospects and clients have. We do not second rate this. We don't meet with them on a Friday afternoon when I'm trying to check out of the office and quickly review things and only give them 401k advice for a 401k that we manage. No, we treat them like a full-fledged client. And that means that their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their husband, their wife can come into the appointment with them, and we do comprehensive financial planning. If you think your team understands what financial planning is and they are not working with a financial advisor, either someone in your firm, you, or somebody else, you are mistaken. So our relationship managers smash prospecting out of the park because they understand the importance of it, because they have done it themselves. They have been through that. We've walked the walk. We've talked the talk. They know what happens in that meeting. They understand our processes. Everything is documented in our CRM, Infinity CRM, and there is a whole new client onboarding prospecting process drawn out every step of the way. And we are so hyper disciplined at Shalansky & Associates for following that process, because we know if we don't, we will fail the prospect. And anytime you do a one-off, anytime you meet with a prospect somewhere socially, maybe you give them your cell phone number, they text you, you meet with them on a Friday night or Saturday morning, anytime that you break a process, you are failing that prospect or that client. You're failing them, because the second that you broke it, you will continue to break it. There will be whatever starts in the beginning will continue through to the end. And your team is going to be the ones playing janitor, cleaning up after your sloppiness. And do not let your ego kid you. Do not let your ego step in and say, this isn't sloppy, this isn't breaking processes, this is getting things done because nobody else is. I'm the only one that can do it. If you're undisciplined in your processes, you're sloppy. That's all there is to it. And if you don't think you are, go talk to your team, because I bet they get the most frustrated when they're having to clean up after you because you did something that you thought was helpful. You just scheduled the appointment. You just called the client back. You just met with them on Saturday and they didn't need to come in. You did something that you thought was helpful for them because it took a burden off of them that now puts them in a position of having to deal with unrealistic expectations that you set. You set those up. You set your team up for failure when you break your processes. So we have the prospect all the way to new client onboarding and referral stages mapped out in what we refer to. We document every single step inside of our Infinity CRM, which is the most robust financial planning software out there for financial advisors. It is a brain trust of information. It is a vault. It is a step-by-step guide for all of our teams. And when we fail, because we do, right? From time to time we fail, then we go back and we look at our processes and we dissect it and we say, okay, great. What broke down? Where did it break down? And we go step by step, just as if we were a professional performance team and we're rewatching all of our film. We want to see, where did we break down? Where did we miss a step? Where did we not do what we said we were going to do? And if it was our team that failed, if it was our team that broke the process, now we've isolated it. We can coach, we can develop, and they have ownership over that. We practice Jocko Extreme Accountability in our office. If you have not read that book, you need to download it, put it on audio, listen to it several times, have your entire team listen to it. In fact, Jocko does an echelon training retreat. This is something that if you're looking forward to send your team to, this might be a really great exercise for them to do. But we walk through extreme accountability. You don't get to say, oh, it broke because so-and-so. There's no finger pointing. Where did you take ownership? Where do you have responsibility? And if it's a financial advisor that broke the process, there's a fine for that in our office, and we pay that fine. Now, sometimes it makes sense to pay the fine, right? Like I've explained, one time we had a client, international traveler, in town for one day. We don't ask for same day paperwork, and we needed a wet signature. I had to ring the gong, go back to my operations team and say, hey, listen, I need this paperwork right away. They said, I'm happy to do that. This is going to break a process. Are you comfortable with that? And yeah, it made sense for me to break that process that time, but it doesn't make sense to break that process every time, right? And with our team members, they really rely on the financial advisor to set the tone of discipline, to set the goals, to set client expectations, and to provide those team members with steadiness and consistency. Your team will thrive when they understand what is expected of them. They will fail you, the client, the prospect, and themselves when you are constantly putting them in a state of hyper reactivity. If you are creating every situation as an emergency for them to have to react to, then you're never going to get them into thinking proactively. They're always going to be stuck in reactive because you put them there. You did it. So at Shalansky & Associates, we have fostered an environment in which team members can respectfully push back. And they can also respectfully give advice. You know, we have 5 different financial advisors in our office, and some of us have expertise or uniqueness in particular areas. And our team members know that. They know the bounty of our information and who we are best suited with. And so, for example, we work with a lot of federal employees, and there is a retirement system called Civil Service Retirement System under federal employees. It's antiquated. It was replaced by the FERS system, Federal Employee Retirement System. but there are still some CSRS employees out there. And that is a certain level of expertise that is revolved around those benefits. And so during one of our surges, we had a prospect call in and say, hey, listen, my wife is a FERS employee, but I'm a CSRS employee. Do you have anyone that understands both of our benefits? And in that situation, the prospect had scheduled to meet with a financial advisor who didn't have experience in those type of benefits. And so the relationship manager, after the appointment was scheduled and booked and was looking ahead and saw when the prospect uploaded all their information that they were a CSRS employee and had been scheduled with a financial advisor that did not have experience working with those individuals, was able to come forth and say, hey, listen, I know this prospect is on your schedule. I know you've got new client goals. I just don't think that they're best suited for you. Do you have objections to moving them to so-and-so? And luckily, we have structured the type of environment where that kind of pushback is 100% accepted. There was no, well, this is my client, this is my lead, this is knit and grit back and forth, because our responsibility is to provide massive value to clients and prospects alike when they come and meet with our office. And if you don't know what you don't know, you can't do that. And so instead, we transferred them over to somebody that did have experience in that particular set of benefits. And the only way we would have caught that, the only way we would have thwarted a disastrous prospect appointment, right? Prospects come in, they're expecting you to be a federal employee benefit expert. They sit down, they start talking about a benefit plan that you don't know anything about. That would have been disastrous for that financial advisor and prospect alike. So instead, we were able to deliver massive value by aligning them with the financial advisor that was best suited for their particular needs. And so when you're hyper focused on providing the most amount of value possible, the money will follow you. When you're only focused, what we refer to as commission breadth, and seeing account values and who has the most amount of money and who's closest to retirement so you can transfer those assets, you are going to miss opportunity to provide value. And that is what is most important to us. We want to radically change lives. And in order to do that, you have to deliver massive value and create an organization where team members feel that they can respectfully push back on you and help guide you because they have your best interest at heart too. Do they always understand the finances and the back end of things and how people get paid and the AUM and all of that? No, but that's not their job. That's yours, right? And you have to empower your team. Look out for things that are in your best interest as well as the prospect and clients. So respectful pushback, always okay in our office. But in order to receive respectful pushback, you have to set the limitations of that. You have to have conversations with your team about what is respectful pushback and what is disrespectful pushback, and draw those very clear lines. And if you empower them to ask questions, to push back in a respectful way, you're going to find that they will radically change the way that you do business and are able to deliver massive value to clients. Like everything that we do at the Perfect RIA, we are in pursuit of perfection. We are on a quest to deliver massive value, spend more time outside of the office with the people that you love, and still be highly profitable. So with everything that we think, do, and share, through this podcast, through our YouTube channel, at the perfectria.com website, and of course, our powerful sessions every single quarter in which you get expert and actionable advice from the perfectria.com. We want you to take action. And that means after listening to this, there are things that you need to go and do that we talked about. One, who do you work with? Who are your prospects? If you work with everyone, you work with no one. What makes you one of a kind? What makes you one of many? What language can you strip away that really doesn't provide any meaning or value to the people that you serve, and only hyper focus on what is best, who you work best with, who shares your values? And then second action item, you have to go and relay that to your team. Your team needs to know at their core who you work best with. And then third, you need to create a plan for respectful pushback. How do you allow your team to talk to you, and in turn, you to talk to them? Make sure you're not the one that's causing a lot of the strife and headache for your team. A lot of times you think you're making their life easier, and you're probably making it a lot harder. They just don't know how to tell you until they reach a breaking point or get really frustrated. Have open dialogues with your team. Create an open atmosphere where you can have respectful pushback pushback, but also make sure you define the rules that it's never in front of clients. It's never in front of prospects. Most of the time, it's not in front of other team members unless we're having a session where we all come together in a round table and we've created an environment for that. What are the rules around respectful pushback? What are the deal breakers? What's going to get them fired on the spot if they violate those rules? For me, one of my violation rules is it's not my job. Got this from my mom, Rosa Shalansky, when the firm was much larger at Shalansky & Associates and she was running dozens of employees. Any employee that said it's not my job was fired. Why? Because we are all in this together. There is no job beneath you. We do the work that needs to get done, period. And if you come to something and say it's not my job and you're pointing fingers, then you're not the right team member for us. That's just how it is. That's how we operate. TPR Nation, thank you for tuning in. This has been Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Find people who share your values and go change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect